This is the voice of Bold Business Radio, and I'm your host, Jessica Dewell of Red Direction. You are listening to Program 10. But I'm busy! Okay, when it comes to our relationships, how busy we seem actually creates how others interact with us. When I ask somebody how they're doing or what's happening, the responses I receive fall into three categories. The first one, I'm busy. Okay, well, that makes me think they're overloaded or they're making sure I understand how important they are and how important I'm not. So I may ask a few questions, but I'll really keep the conversation short, because if somebody implies that they're too busy for me or that I'm intruding on their time, or even that they just don't really want to talk about what's going on, there's no way to really engage with that person. It's very closed. Second, it's going and I'm hanging on. Well, that's very overwhelming sounding and very fear-based. The person might not be sure what to do, or they're stalled, or maybe they're just burnt out and they just don't care. It's interesting because depending on what's going on in my life will vary how I respond to it's going and I'm hanging on. I will either, my helper will kick in. Oh my gosh, I want to take care of you. I want to make sure everything is okay. But I really need to put that in check, because a better way to support that person right then is through empathy. Oh, I get that it's hard. I understand hanging on. I've been there. Well, and both of these two, the first two, I'm busy, it's going, and I'm hanging on. They're very different than this third type of response I get. And by the way, this is the rarest that I ever hear. Here's what I did. That makes me excited when somebody is ready to tell me what they're working on and what's impactful in their life and who they're working with. That's exciting for me. I want to celebrate with them. I get excited. I want to do a happy dance. It's energizing for them. They're energizing me. My energy is going to re-energize them. It's an amazing place to catch some momentum. So celebrating that success, understanding the obstacles might be in the way, with all of that energy, there's a little bit of brainstorming that can happen. And we have the opportunity to help each other and maybe impact each other's lives, even though our journeys might be very different from just that small change of answering, how's it going? So do a quick check-in with yourself. What was your gut reaction when somebody says, I'm busy? Or it's going and I'm hanging on? Or here's what's going on? Do you think they were productive or not? Do you think they see the value of their effort or not? That's what today's pro panel question will explore. You're listening to Program 10, but I'm busy. And we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Okay, today on this show, we have three amazing pro panelists: Cynthia Bazin, Carmen Rojas, and Dawson. Tell me what's going on in your world.
I'm busy.
I want Jessica to be my friend, so I'm driving. I'm telling you what I'm doing. That's important. I'm driving.
Oh, that's awesome. Those are the short answers, everybody. So I want to know, tell me what you guys think. What's the difference between busy work and the heavy lifting work?
All right, I'll jump in. Again, Cynthia Bazin, so great to be here with you, Jessica, Joelle, and Carmen. So I didn't know where this conversation was going before jumping on. So my definition of hard, heavy lifting versus busy work is the following. The hard lifting work is the stuff that you must do in business. And I think the busy work is stuff that necessarily you may not need to do. Really, the heavy lifting stuff, as far as being a business owner, to me, is building those relationships, doing those calls, building trust and loyalty with people that you know and people that you want to get to know. The stuff that really steps into your brilliance, the stuff that you really need to do as a business owner. And to me, the busy work is stuff that I learned that, you know what, I needed to release control of. So some of the stuff like the paperwork, as a business owner, when you first start off, I was handling absolutely everything. I was handling all my receipts, the tax forms, everything and that sort of thing. So to me, that falls into the busy category. Some of the marketing, things that, you know, is not direct phone calls, that sort of thing. Can you delegate that out to other people? Sometimes just different types of branding things that you're doing. Is it really converting you, or is it just building awareness? So sometimes those things that you think that are being helpful for your business are really just busy things that you need to take a check. So that's kind of a short answer.
I would echo that. I think for a business owner, those are absolutely the things that would be considered heavy lifting. But I've also had to learn to extend that into my personal life as well. That there are things that are busy work as a mom and as a military spouse. I love to sit up all night and watch Scandal and chit chat with my girlfriends, but that doesn't help my family advance. That doesn't meet our family goals. It doesn't meet my business goals. And so, yeah, I do it sometimes because it is part of, you know, my self-care routine to have, you know, my guilty pleasure moments on watching TV. But I have to put that in perspective. And at times it can get in the way of other things that are more important. There's the analogy that they use with the big rocks and the little grains of sand and what you're trying to put into your glass. My business is certainly a very, very big rock in my glass, but understanding what are some smaller pieces of my life that are also important and making sure that they are in the proper priority. So I echo but extend her definition into your personal life as well.
I would have to triple echo. I would have to echo what Carmen said, then echo what Cynthia said. But the first thing that I do want to mention is me being from South Louisiana, that's almost like a greeting to certain things. I know men do this all the time. They'll say, hey, you know, oh, y'all busy, huh? It's like, well, it's almost like, I don't want to say maybe a status symbol or something, but that's a conversation that always comes up. I don't care what industry, you know, someone's going to say, so y'all busy? Or so you, at that point, you start telling them, yeah, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing it. And sometimes I'll just to mess around, I'll say, I'm doing nothing. They're like, nothing. You know, because they equate that to, I guess, how much money you're making. I don't really know why, but if for some reason, that's just something that always comes up. But my definition of the difference between busy work and heavy lifting is exactly what they said. And I've been guilty of this before. I would spend all day basically doing nothing. I got to do this, shuffling papers around, and you can waste your whole day, your whole entire day doing absolutely nothing, but you're busy. Mm-hmm. The heavy lifting is where you're actually getting hands-on and you're doing the things that matter. You know, as Carmen said, it's the big rocks. So the things that you personally do that affects your paycheck, that's the best way I can explain it. Let's put some money in that bank account, and you may have to do some heavy lifting. A lot of times, if I'm being involved in another project, and I'm not even talking about business here, sometimes I do consulting work, and I'll tell them, okay, I'm not going to do the heavy lifting on this. And that's one of my favorite things, especially if I'm going to be doing it for free. I'm not going to do the heavy lifting, which means I'm not going to take charge. I'm not going to be the one to do all of the day-to-day, the hands-on things. So that's two totally different things.
I am loving all of this. You should see my notes. I have 2 colors of ink here and some things circled because this outlines the whole rest of our conversation. And each of you have said things we're going to go back to.
Last time you did that, you showed me a picture of a smiley face. It wasn't notes. It was like,
yeah, it was. It was. Let's start with conversion versus building awareness in our business. There are very important things we must do. So when we're thinking about productivity around building awareness, and there are very must-do things around building conversion in our business. So I would love to hear a story from whoever has a story that talks about something maybe that you did and then you let go of because it was worth a try, but it didn't have the results, even if the result was something intangible like building awareness.
I'll start off because something comes right to mind to me. And, you know, it was just a great learning experience that it was a friend of mine that was in marketing, and I'm obviously a laser-focused mentor and I'm a motivational speaker, is that we had a great idea that, hey, listen, we should do a collaboration on Blab. bye-bye blab, no more blab. But anyways, it was great while I was here.
I know, right?
So we decided, hey, listen, let's do a weekly show. You're in marketing, she was in marketing, I was in mentoring, and that let's talk about important subjects related to this. Well, it was a great idea, but the problem that we just learned from the beginning is that we came together as friends to do this, but we didn't come up with what I always say, a laser focused strategy right at the beginning. We didn't say, hey, listen, what do you want out of it? And what do I want out of it? And what is the goal of this particular thing? So what we found is we did it for several months. We got lots of engagement, but we really didn't have the plan of what do we both want to get out of this? Are we, giving them a call to action on this particular blab for her program, a program of us doing something together? And so it was something that after a couple months, 3 months, we did a check-in and we just honestly said, hey, listen, it's fun. We're getting a lot of engagement, but you know what? We should have at the beginning come up with a plan in regards to what are our individual goals and our collective goals, and what do we both want to get out of this. So just a quick story of something that two friends coming together, we love each other, we still are friends, we support each other's businesses, but we did a collaboration that was more fun versus having that plan in place.
I'll jump in a little bit, and I'm going to have to fight hard to stay off my soapbox because conversion is like that's my business. That's what we do. I have tons of stories from clients and personal ones myself where you have to stay focused on what it is that actually moves the needle. One of the things that I know, to not point anybody out specifically, but social media for a lot of people can be one of those things that, it improves the brand and it's engagement and it's all of this stuff. But like Cynthia said, unless you have a strategy to actually turn social media engagement into sales on your website or sales in your front door, whatever it is, then it's not conversion. And it gets into that area that's closer to being just busy work. I won't say that it always is, because there is room for brand awareness, but if you're not doing something that improves conversion and improves your bottom line, like all that time has value. If it's your time, if you're paying somebody to do it, whatever it is, that time has value. And if it's not being returned in a way that is physical dollars or somehow profitable to you, then it really isn't a conversion. And you either need to retool how you're doing, stop, get a strategy, whatever it is you need to do, but you got to fix that, because otherwise it really does become a dark hole of busy work.
In 2014, when I first started speaking professionally, I had this idea, like a lot of people do, this is what I'm going to offer to the public. And I see a lot of people still make this mistake today, especially when it comes to speaking. They have a certain topic that they want to speak on. So they go full steam ahead and they're just going. They're just going. They got the blinders on. They're not paying attention to anything. They're just going, which is what I did. And when I first started, I was doing a lot of speaking on nonverbal communication, body language, because that's 93% of how we actually communicate to each other. The problem with that was, in this day and age, you can speak for free all you want. You can speak until your tongue falls out. However, converting that into speaking fees was totally different. And what I found out was that nobody was really paying me for it. Well, I guess I have to switch gears. So I switched gears to something else. And this was just by happenstance. I started working in the startup community. I teach these startup companies how to pitch their ideas to investors, which is totally different from what I originally started off with. But the biggest lesson that I learned from that is not to just say, okay, I'm going to make you buy this, and just start really listening to what the end user is saying. This is what I want. This is what I'm willing to actually pay for. So my biggest lesson in all of this was just to keep my ears open and listen for the demand, because my conversion went from zero and it went through the roof because I started offering things that people were willing to pay for.
We're going to come back to that because I was frantically writing down another point. I love it. Next, every single one of you has said things about prioritization. I'm going to keep doing this just because Joelle's going to start copying me at some point. For those of you listening, I'm just putting my hand in a circle. For all of you, we've all said, and I strongly, yes!
I've gone the wrong way.
Is prioritization. That is a skill. It is a skill that usually comes through some poor choices, through some hard realities, through some just, I have to start somewhere even. What are your tips for how to prioritize?
I think everybody has their own kind of secret sauce system that works for them. So what works for me may not work for you, Jessica, Carmen, or Joelle. But for me, like, for example, the prioritization, and Carmen touched on this in the beginning, is that it's not all business, right? So the personal stuff falls into this, is that self-care is number one for me. So the first thing as priority is to take care of yourself, or at least for me, first thing in the morning. I've got to get a workout in order to get my balance, focus, priorities straight. So starting off my day with a great workout. And then for me is that I want to do that toughest task first. I don't like to do all the little things, all the easy things first, and have that big thing that I need to get done during the day in the midday towards the latter part of the day. For me, early mornings is my time of brilliance, that the thinking cap is on and that I can really go. So for me, I put 2 or 3 things on the priority list per day. I don't have a long laundry list of things to do, because that gets overwhelming. And with my clients, that gets them totally overwhelmed when they have so much to do. So I always say, write 2 to 3 things down at most that you're going to get done during the day. And then for me personally, it's getting that big one, the one that you need to unload, done first. And then get the other things done and all the other easy stuff later on. Mm-hmm. So that's what works for me as far as priorities go.
I like to work out too, and that's a big priority to me. I totally understand, because I feel way off kilter. And if I haven't gotten my workouts in for the week, I'm just like, I can't focus. I'm all discombobulated. But you know, and so I do something similar where these are the things that I have to do before I go to bed tonight. And there are nights that they don't get done until 2 o'clock in the morning, but that's not every night. But I do those, and I make sure of that those high priority things that I've identified, and I make sure that those get done, and just being dedicated to making sure that that actually does happen. To be the data nerd in the house, your analytics, if you're talking about your business and your marketing and website conversion, stuff like that, that will tell you what to prioritize. If you're running it correctly, you can see where your business is coming from and where it's not, or where maybe you're getting some but not as much. So it'll tell you how to prioritize your dollars, how to prioritize your marketing spend, how to prioritize your resources. All of that kind of stuff can be found if you're running analytics, if you're asking the right questions, and if you're setting things up in your business so that it will tell you these things. It's not just enough to look at your income statement every month and make decisions on that, but it's better than nothing. But you do have to actually spend the time to take a look at the numbers and figure out where you should be placing emphasis, and maybe some things don't need as much as others, or some you don't need to be wasting your time with at all.
Being a former Marine, up at 5:30 in the gym, no later than 7. Seems that we all have that in common. But I get my day started like that every single day, every day. I plan for the week on Mondays. On Mondays, this is what I do. I don't either here in my office, but I normally go to Starbucks. And what I will do, I will write a list of all of my big rocks, all of the major things that I have to get done. Make it done today, make it done tomorrow, or whatever. I don't focus on, well, I got to do this step, this step. No, I only focus on the big rocks. Here's the things that have to get done. And I spend the whole day just thinking about everything that has to be done, whether it's for my business or whether it's personal. This is what I have to get done. Now, the rest of the week, I'll use to say, okay, well, I'm going to do this and this today, or I'll do this and this today, or I'll have someone do this and this, or whatever, and I start working on that list. I don't worry about anything else. I do not. I will not get sidetracked. Now, if there's something I need to add to that list, only because I don't want to forget it, I'll add it on that list, but not necessarily to get it done this week, because I didn't add it on Monday. If something comes up, well, it just depends on the severity of it. Now, here's the thing. If I go through a whole week and I have certain things that I didn't get to, and I realize that, well, maybe it really wasn't a priority. I thought it was a priority, but it's really not. I'll take it off of that list. I cannot stand to have a to-do list with things that's been on it this week, next week, next week. Obviously, it's not that important. So I'll take it off. So the only thing that I focus on are the big rocks, the things that have to get done at the moment. When I get to the point to where I don't have any big rocks anymore, which is not that often. But if I get to the point where I don't have any big rocks, any major projects that I'm working on right now, I'll take a look at some of the other little projects, but I don't necessarily do them. I'll write them down on the list just to keep them in mind, but those are the things that I'll normally contract out or have someone else do. But at that time, that frees me to, I only like to focus on the big rocks, big projects, but that gives me the opportunity to look for other projects. I don't like to get bogged down in the details, but as far as how I prioritize things, Monday is my day. Monday is my day where I take a look at all the things that are really, really important. As I say, whether it be business or in my personal life, that's when I write down and I plan my week that way.
And I'm going to add a third to this because I heard a lot about some structure. Everybody has this thing that they do, whether it's a day or a week. I heard some things about behavior, the things that make the list or that are at top of mind are the things that get the attention. And here's what I like about those, and I'm going to add to this, and I also have a date associated with them. I have things I want to do, but I just have this vision of what it looks like at the end. I don't know what the actual tasks are per se that I'm going to plan to do to get me toward my goal before I start. I know what the end goal is, and I know the due date that I have assigned myself. And then when I'm waking up in the morning, depending on my energy level, depending on my excitement around the subject, depending on maybe something that was inspiring to me throughout the day, I will take action to move me toward the goal. And I actually filter my actions. What do I want to do and I will choose the things that move me toward that end goal. And unlike the rest of you guys, I used to exercise in the morning, and I recently came up with this other thing. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30 to 2 o'clock, I want to take a nap. I have no energy. My energy is gone. And so I've decided, and I just started this, I don't have an outcome yet, to work out in the middle of the afternoon. So as soon as that tired part hits and I have no more energy, I'm going to go try and rejuvenate a little bit. Okay, I'm out of juice. What can I do? Move my body to try and get some physical energy going, which moves all kinds of other energy, which will hopefully turn my brain back on and help me make it until bedtime. And depending on how tired I am, I might take a power nap first. It all depends. So it's kind of neat when we think about self-care that maybe the self-care might occur at a different time, because I grew up with, for the last several years I've practiced, I will wake up as early as it takes to make sure I get a workout in. And I'm still tired at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I was like, well, what happens if I do my workout in the afternoon? So here's an idea of iterating to see, can I improve, keep my priorities, but change the way that they're done, because what the outcome is still the outcome. I've got my priorities, I've got my vision, and here we go. So I wanted to toss that in as a third approach to this. And by the way, without due dates, I think everybody here would echo me that without a due date, it's really not a goal and it's really not a priority. Because we need we need to know where we're going. We need to know what we're going to do. And if we don't give ourselves a deadline, it's easy to let it slip. We're not holding ourselves accountable, which is a kind of discipline. And having the discipline to hold ourselves accountable is part of the reason that we prioritize in the first place. At least that's what I'm taking away from all of your answers so far. I'm going to go to the status thing. The status thing that we were talking about at the beginning with the first answers. How does that come into play, and does it come into play at all for you guys when and do you challenge the status quo? I really liked that, Joelle, when you said I don't do anything. I'm not doing anything right now. My answer usually in those situations, if it gets to that, it's like, I'm with you guys right now. I bring myself back into that moment. So I'm curious, how do you handle it when you're asking and you genuinely care where somebody's at and what they're up to? Or you yourself, is there a time that you found yourself going, oh, I have this status, and you kind of start to believe it? Has that ever happened to you guys? And how do you catch yourself and shift gears?
We're talking about status, and people normally ask that question. A long time ago, when I used to work in the oil and gas industry, that's what they do. I know that question is coming. They technically knew I was busy because I was never there. I was always gone. That's a good thing. When you work in the oil and gas industry, you're normally gone for 2 weeks, a month out in the Gulf of Mexico, then you come back for 2 weeks. Well, if they don't see me for a couple of months, they kind of knew that. But I hated it. I hated it. They don't want to know about me. They just wanted to know, are you working? That's what they're basically saying. Are you working? Are you making money? And I was like, no, I'm here. But the thing is, they would say, well, when are you going back to work? I'm like, I just got here. But, you know, it's one of these things that they use that as a way to attack some type of status to you or take it away from you. Now, if you go back a couple of years ago, you know, Jessica, you know my story. When I was homeless, nobody asked me that.
Right.
They didn't ask me that, so I didn't have any status.
Okay, so when you're adding value, or when the value needs to be defined, is when it becomes busyness or fullness of a schedule becomes important. Now you're defining a shared meaning of busy inside an organization, which could be different from another organization. At
first, I was just talking about, you know, socially. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm really busy doing things. You know, this is not a status symbol. You know, I have to work by a calendar every mm-hmm. single day because I like to keep my life predictable. I don't like surprises. I don't like going all off in the tall grass, you know, and getting, you know, sidetracked by anything. But, you know, it's not to the point. I don't use that. You know, I don't use that to try to portray myself as something that I'm not. I'm just naturally busy because I want to be, mm-hmm. you know, not because of some type of what other people think about me.
Anybody else want to weigh in there?
I would just add, you know, as your status, if you want to call it status or responsibility within your business changes, then your priorities on time change as well. One of the most important things that I had to learn when I kind of transitioned from being an employee to being a business owner is that I had to learn to stop doing things, to stop being busy. That there were some things that I just needed to take my hands off of and just let it go. Stop messing with it. I learned to write much shorter emails, for example. You know, I learned to do things that just, you know, I said what I needed to say and then I just stopped. And I think that as you gain status within companies, that's an important skill to learn too. And how to stop working or stop a task, say that's all I need to say, I'm done, or this task is that's all I needed to add to it, and I'm done. I think as an employee, we tend to kind of get in the mindset of trying to keep my job and trying to keep my status, and well, I'm a business owner, so the business doesn't close unless I do. Mm-hmm. So right. I don't need to constantly be on that hamster wheel all the time, and that I can actually stop and do other things, status or responsibility, or just because I can. That's how I've had to approach things. And I think any system that has to run constantly in order to make its goal is a highly inefficient system, because systems go down. That's just an inevitable. So it's the only way that you're ever going to get to your goal is if you constantly are grinding 24/7. It's going to be really hard to get there. And so being able to stop every now and then is a really important skill.
Other favorite words of mine have started to appear in this conversation: efficiency, letting go, responsibility. Well, let's talk about owning it. You know, we started out, what's the difference between heavy lifting work and busy work? And sometimes there's a misunderstanding between like a thinking time, which has no direct output immediately, and sales calls, which have a direct output immediately. And both are equally important. And that's where the prioritization piece and how we look at the day in our whole lives and as a leader in our organization or the leader of our organization, we're looking at and owning, here are the things that have to get done for a whole lot of other people. And as soon as we delegate, as soon as we're delegating, we are developing somebody else. It doesn't matter if they're a contractor. It doesn't matter if they're an employee. It doesn't matter if they're an intern. What matters is they're a person that's taking on a role for some reason, some way, somehow within our organization. And we've officially become, and I use this term and I'm cheeky about it, we're the line leader. We are the leader of the line. And if we're developing the people that are around us, if we've got our open communication, if everybody understands why they're doing what they're doing and how it fits to the end goal of delivering the product to the end customer, everybody feels like they're adding to and fulfilling their role in this space. And that comes down to responsibility. So I would be curious, both at life and at work, whatever situation comes to mind first, how do you guys model responsibility?
For me, and how I interpret that question is you just have to walk the walk. As far as every day I'm preaching about giving yourself white space time as business owners, right? That it is as important as doing those calls to be able to have space in order to think about your business, dream about your business, take a look to see what's working and not working. And so if I'm just busy and being so strapped with calls and not having any time for myself, people can see that in me. So for me, modeling it is walking the walk. So every single day, for example, as far as priorities go, is that I leave that last hour of the day to do a check-in as far as what's working, what's not working. And I actually plan my day for the next day the night before. So before I shut it down, which is another thing of walking the walk, not being available 24 hours a day, setting a time to shut it down, is that I get my day set up before the end of the day, have it ready for the next day. So I think just to answer that question in my own way, I would say that people see if you're walking the walk. They can see whether you're just talking a bunch of stuff or you're actually modeling what you're talking about. So that's what I think.
Cool.
I think one thing that we do a good job of, and I hope that as a leader I do a good job of this as well, is to model accountability as well. I have reprimanded people on my team, not necessarily for, I don't know, reprimand is the wrong word. I've had to get on them when they don't hold me accountable for something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm more bothered by people that say, you know, Carmen, you said that this would be ready by this time and it's not. And if they don't call me out on that, I more fuss at them for that than other things. I need them to hold me accountable, and in turn, I hold them accountable. But what's important is that we trust each other enough to do that and know that that's coming from a goal-focused place, that it's not a petty thing. To me, that's been important, and that helps us stay focused on, keep calling them the big rocks, but that helps us stay focused on it, because if you have your team holding you accountable, you don't have time for the little rocks. It kind of forces you to prioritize properly because you know that you're going to be held accountable. So that's one thing that I think that we do a very good job of, is holding ourselves accountable and holding others accountable for what it is that we've agreed that is going to be done.
One of my favorite speeches that I give is a speech called Taillights. Taillights simply means leading by example. And this goes back to what Cynthia was saying. And the one thing that I teach is it is really, really hard for you to teach someone or encourage someone to do something that you cannot or will not do. Now, we talked about, having that white space. Mondays are my white space. This is when I'm kind of like an eagle sitting up in the nest. Eagle sitting up on high. We all know the eagle has no predators. He can fly higher than anyone. I look at my business like that. And I look at my life like that. I don't get caught down on the ground like an ant. You ever seen ants? Ants are just running around. They're carrying hot dog buns. They're carrying twigs. They do everything. But they're really not doing anything. Right?
Yeah,
but
right.
when I look at my business, for example, like on the Mondays, I'm looking at everything from on high, and I make the decisions of what are the things that I'm going to do. Okay, I don't look back or check to see if this person is doing what they're supposed to do. I lead by example. I make them want to follow me. I don't push them. I make them want to follow me. So knowing that, okay, I got to get this done, and I will say this: a lot of times, especially if I'm starting a new project. If I make a decision that I'm going to take this project on and it's going to be finished, I don't say, I'm going to do this, and at the end of the day, it's like, I didn't get it done because of this, or I didn't get it done because of that. If I take on the project, that means that regardless of what happens, I'm going to get it done. I'm the guy that always says yes. I'm a different kind of yes man. At the end of the day, it's very simple. It's either yes or no. And I take on that project knowing that even if I had to do it all myself. Now, remember, I don't have a lot of employees. As a matter of fact, I don't have any employees. I contract a lot of my things out. But if at the end of the day, if there's a project that needs to be done, it will be done. And as I said, just like in the Marine Corps, did you get it done? It's either yes or no. It's like being pregnant. Either you are or you ain't.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. Yep. And I would say at work, for me, the story that I would say is we're going to even talk about the creation of the Voice of Bold Business Radio here. I have a team that is working with me on that. Some people are doing the artwork and they're preparing the SEO and they're doing the social media stuff. Some people are creating the open and the close and are going to be involved with distribution. But what did that mean? That meant not I was going to do all of the creation. Well, there's a few other things that as we jumped into this, remember I start something and figure out as we go to get to the end, we found things that nobody had thought of. Everybody, the way that I work is I come up with an idea and I'm going to go forward and I will talk to people about it and I will include the people that will be helping me on the project involved in it, and I will ask for their feedback. And they have gotten used to the fact, it's hard at first, but they've gotten used to the fact that my skin in the game is the outcome and the final vision. My skin in the game is not my idea to get it started. And so anything that anybody adds to make this project complete and the best that it can be is welcome. And we toss and we poke each other's ideas to make sure that we filled in all of the gaps. And if we miss some things, we fill them as we go. And so the openness and the willingness to receive feedback for me is one way to model responsibility at work. And also the fact that I believe that everybody has a good idea. And I believe that one person can't have the best idea. It's the iteration of all of the ideas when they come together and they're worked through that make that. And my team feels really good about that. Another example, more socially, would be I could put on events, right? I have speaking engagements. I have people come together in a room and we're putting the events together. Or if somebody has me speaking, I will ask the question, is this a zero waste event? And people are like, what does that mean? Well, are you going to be serving water? Yes. Where's the water coming from? Oh, there'll be bottles of water around. And I'll ask, well, that's really not zero waste. All those bottles now have to be recycled, and we don't even know if this place recycles. Can we have filtered water out of pitchers and glasses instead? And they think about it and they're like, what a small, easy thing to do. And what have we done? We've reduced gas house emissions because we're not driving the bottles of water to the hotel or having them delivered in some way. We're reducing what goes into the landfill if the recycling is not occurring. We're also reducing the energy it takes to recycle the plastic if recycling is occurring, and we're making less of a footprint. And we're just being aware of the fact that we could have water in pitchers as easily as we could have water in bottles. And at home, what we did, and at restaurants when we go out, I try really hard to avoid straws. There are more straws that go into the landfill because they're not recyclable and not compostable unless you seek them out, that they're just filling up and making trash. And if we just stopped using straws, we could reduce the amount that we're filling up our landfills, and we could reduce the amount of space that our trash is taking up on this planet. And so those are just kind of two things also that I'm going to ask the question when it presents itself and not be judgmental of the answer. Sometimes I can't get a zero waste event, but at least I know because I asked. And that hopefully will plant the seed that those might be possible. And somebody else could take that and make an impact because it's through all of us coming together and at least making an effort to show up and do what we're going to say we're going to do all the way to the end, I think is where I'm going with this. All the way to the end. What do you guys think about that?
You rock. I love it.
And it's hard. I have to tell you, I don't succeed all the time.
For some reason, I don't know why this bothers me, but I'll show you.
Oh, I'm excited.
Like this.
Uh-oh.
I have 2 boxes of paper that I used for my printer on one side. I can't throw away a piece of paper if I've only written on it on one side. For some reason, I can't do that. It just, to me, it's a waste. It's a pet peeve of mine, but that's just something that I do. You know, a lot of times I used to go to my client's house, I'm printing out an insurance contract, like, well, that's not my name. I was like, oh, no, yours is on the other side. It's like, well, why is it on the other side? I never say that, but I just can't do it.
I had a funny story for Joelle with using both sides of the paper. I once, when in my employee life, I was working for an advertisement agency, and the agency was owned by a group that also had a magazine, and we had a shared graphic arts department. So one of our major clients was a credit union. And it was our habit too, to use the other side of the paper to do things. And so I can't remember what it was. I think it was like a meeting agenda or something. And the meeting was outside of the office. And so those of us that were involved in that account got all our stuff together and went, and we're sitting there in the boardroom of this credit union. And one of the vice presidents flips the paper over. And it was like a bicycle ad with like a scantily clad chick on it. I mean, it was just like, oh. So yeah, you got to be careful.
Yes.
Oh, that is funny.
Yeah, you got to be careful about what's on the other side of the paper.
That actually, in a really weird way, ties into our last question that I'm going to ask today around this topic, and that is, how do you release control? So, Carmen, you already released control and ended up in an awkward situation by using two sides of paper. But I'm curious, and just in terms of day-to-day tasks, delegation, what one or two tips do you have for us to be able to recognize that there is control that can be handed to somebody else?
One of the most important things that I've had to learn how to do is learn how to laugh at stuff. That kind of thing happens. I had to do a presentation for the medical county for Dewell County Medical Society. And we had handout that we were doing, and one of the big words on it was the word assess, because we wanted them to assess patients and do this other stuff. And I don't know how I missed it, but one of the artists that did that design left out one of the S's. And so assess became something completely different. Let's just leave it at that. And so literally, like, there I am in the middle of this thing, and the guy that, we had massaged this relationship to get in here and present this thing, and the guy just looks at me and he says the other word, of course. And I'm like, oh my God. And I wanted to melt into the floor, but like literally you just can't. And so I just finally had like just a get it together moment with myself and said, you know what? That's what it says. I don't have any other choice but to pass these papers around and just make a joke out of it and keep it moving and not dwell on it. And maybe if I don't make a big deal out of it, they won't make a big deal out of it either. And it'll be all a joke that we can all laugh at, and then we'll move on and be all right. And that's basically what happened. They all laughed and were just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many times I've seen that typo, it's all right. Ended up being water under the bridge. And it was just a funny joke that came out later in other conversations. And I think that's an example, but that's something that we have to do, is just understand that you can't control everything. Mistakes are going to happen. Stuff is going to happen. And we just had a hurricane come through here. I can't tell you, we're still off schedule because we can't control weather. We can't control when kids get sick. We can't control, I'm a military spouse. I have no control. You just have to roll with that. And you just have to be willing to kind of let it work out the way it's supposed to. And if things are going to work out the way they're going to, then the odds of that specific detail moment being the thing that makes or breaks your long-term plan are probably kind of slim. So enjoy the moment, laugh it off when it doesn't go right, and just keep moving forward. And I think that's one of the biggest things.
Again, I used to be that type of person years and years ago. It's a long time ago that, wanted to control everything because of who could do it better than I could do it. But I've way past that. And teaching my clients is that typically those that have that problem of releasing control, I usually just ask the question, how's that working for you? What are the results? Are you getting the results that you want? And they're like, no, but I can't release. They have that conflict that they don't want to release the control, but they are not getting the results that they want. So some of the tips that I do with them is, first of all, asking that question, why are you coming to me? How's that working for you, by keeping all of that control? And so for them to kind of be able to move past that a little bit, and how I was able to do it is baby steps. You know what I mean? Is that don't try to do everything all at once. So once people see releasing a little something off their plate, and not just giving it away, maybe giving it and also doing a check-in, right? You don't have to totally give up control. You can oversee, obviously, as a leader or the head of your business. But once they see that little baby step, they give them an hour a day free, and they see that they have more time, they're feeling better, or they're getting more time to make calls, then you know what? They see the results. I have them track the results, and then they're able to, again, more baby steps, which lead to bigger things. Again, is how's it working for you? And they typically are saying, it's not, I'm not sleeping, I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm not making money. All right, what can we do? Let's start off with something and track that and see how that works. And then once they see the results, they release a little bit more and more.
In the beginning, that was a real challenge for me. It really was, because I knew how things, I now sound like them. I know how things are supposed to be. You're not doing it that way. But when it comes to helping businesses become more efficient and being able to increase their bottom line as well as give them more time, the one thing that we always have to address is that business efficient? And I was just having a conversation with a client about this 2 days ago, and the conversation got kind of, heated. And I said, because, this was the person that had their talents in everything. And what happens in a case like that is the business owner is now owned by the business. It's just like having a job, but worse. That business has basically consumed them. And that's because, they have their fingers in everything, in every little thing. And what happens is that causes that business to plateau. It causes it to plateau because now you don't have any time to do anything else. Or it's going to plateau for the second reason of it plateaus because there's a weakness in your business. You're not going to be a whiz at everything. There's a certain weakness in your business. And a lot of times that's where the plateau, because you're not good at it. So either they'll put it off or they'll struggle with trying to do it and they're not good at it. If you ever seen the old movie Star Wars, what does Obi-Wan Kenobi tell him? Let go, Luke. Let go. You have to let it go, because if you let whatever that is, if you start letting go of the things that you don't want to do or the things you're not good at, number one, you have more time and your business is going to run more efficient, because now you have somebody that enjoys what they do or better at it than you do. But as a business owner, you have to realize from the very beginning that you're not good at everything. If your business has plateaued or you're not getting the revenue increase that you want, take a look at some of the weaknesses that you have, some of the things that you're holding on that yourself you're not that good at, or the things that you don't want to do. Let that go. Let it go. And let someone else do it. And look at the free time you have. You struggling with this, whatever it is it worth you having free time to do the things that you enjoy? Weigh those two. That's what I would tell you.
Summing up this whole conversation, do I do it? Do I not? Am I busy? Am I productive? Does this help my life and my life vision? Does this just fill up my time? Does this help me with my work? Am I just getting the job done instead of having fun at what I started to do today? Those are the types of opposites that have come up in different ways throughout our conversation today. And I have to tell you, starting out with the question, what's the difference between busy work and heavy lifting work, which took us to conversions and brand awareness and the impact and the importance of each at different times, to prioritizing how to do it, what it looks like for each of our panelists, the fact that it might even have a status thing sometimes, and then, where's my fourth one? Here it is. It's an orange. That modeling responsibility is just as important as being responsible. And we ended with tips to release control, because in the end, it's all about somebody else's perception of us. So if our goal is to deepen a relationship, how we show up for that interaction, and then if our goal is to accomplish something with a project, what are we trying to accomplish? And then put our intention toward that. The words we use and the meaning that we share is going to make it on one extreme or the other. And so what our panel today on the Voice of Bold Business Radio, Program 10, but I'm busy, really covered is things that we can look for and look out for so that we can be intentional and show up to get what we want and to show up to help others get what they want and have winfinity. Thanks for joining us. All of the program notes, again, will be at the Voice of Bold Business, Program 10, but I'm busy.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.